If you're currently sitting in your living room looking at your retirement savings, staring down a soaring cost of living, and wondering how are you going to survive on a fixed income, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Most people who try to fix their retirement ledger by moving abroad make a structural financial mistake that can easily destroy 100,000 of their hard-earned dollars. They treat international relocation like an emotional vacation. They look at glossy travel brochures, pick heavily advertised coastal names like Tulum or Playa del Carmen, and move straight into a high-turnover tourist zone. And what happens? They get hit with an artificial inflation index I call the Gringo Tax, paying premium dollarized prices for rentals, groceries, and daily services. In my former life as a corporate banking executive, we evaluated every asset movement using a strict formula designed to balance risk mitigation and capital preservation. Today, I'm giving you that exact blueprint. I call it the core satellite method. This method is simple. Your location choices should revolve around a single relationship. First, you have a fixed core hub, a city that anchors your heavy-duty, modern infrastructure needs like quality healthcare and big box stores. Then, orbiting that hub, you have an easily accessed, adjacent satellite town where you actually live, escaping the tourist markups and dropping your rent down to a local domestic baseline of $400 to $700 a month. To find out if a location is a safe, valid play for your fixed income, you must run it through the 4 pillars of the GeoPension Cash Location Audit, and then balance it against a crucial final reality check. Let's look at the numbers. The letter C in our vetting checklist stands for the cost baseline. This is the financial cover charge of your destination. When you run a cost baseline audit, you completely ignore real estate websites designed for foreigners. You look exclusively at the local currency index, the domestic rental prices paid by working local families. In Mexico, that means websites like inmuebles24.com. On a strict Social Security budget, your targeted baseline entry for a comfortable, clean 2-bedroom home should sit firmly between $450 and $700 US a month. When we audited the interior colonial blocks of Valladolid, for example, the numbers lined up beautifully. Clean, authentic residential rentals exist at local baseline values because the city hasn't been re-engineered for mass tourism. In the Yucatán satellite towns we have profiled, your all-in monthly cost of living should be around $1,500 to $2,300 a month for single retirees and $2,200 to $3,200 for a couple. Your cost baseline also includes the hard bureaucracy, the 2026 residency solvency cliff. If you try to jump blindly into temporary Mexican residency without sharp financial research, you can get turned right away at the consulate door because you didn't calculate your retirement income or savings mix to match the strict legal guidelines. This audit tells you if a location is financially viable before you spend a dime on plane tickets. The letter A stands for your anchor proximity. Your adjacent satellite pueblo or beach town cannot exist in a vacuum. It must orbit a major regional capital or metropolitan city, what we call the core hub or anchor. Here's the key. You don't live inside the core city. If you live inside a dense core hub like Mérida, you're signing up for sweltering urban heat trapping, heavy congestion, constant city noise, and a higher cost of living. Instead, the core serves as your master logistical supply closet and your international flight lane anchor. The adjacent satellite town you actually do live in must have cheap, reliable transport to that core anchor. For example, take a look at the coastal grid of Progreso. Natively, it's a laid-back, low-overhead beach town, where you can navigate easily using flat senior accessible bike lanes. But logistically, it sits on a direct 25-minute bus transit corridor straight into North Mérida. I rode the comfortable air-conditioned Auto Progreso bus between downtown Progreso and the heart of Mérida, round trip for about $3. That's 25 minutes to great hospitals, markets, malls, museums, and theaters. Not to mention the bus also stops right in front of the Mérida Costco. You can enjoy a low-impact beach lifestyle at local domestic prices, yet keep top-tier Western retail box stores and connected international airport gates right in your backyard. The letter S dictates your security baseline. Risk-averse seniors frequently make the mistake of looking at broad, sensationalized international news headlines and treating an entire foreign country as a single uniform risk pool. But you don't relocate to a country. You relocate to a specific localized block in a neighborhood of a town you carefully selected. You live in a micro-location. To anchor our framework in strict fact, we start with the U.S. State Department's official grading tiers for safety. In the states of Yucatán and Campeche, home to the key satellite destinations of Progreso, Valladolid, and Campeche, you're operating within a Level 1 security baseline, the absolute safest ranking possible, placing these streets statistically ahead of many major U.S. metropolitan cores. To the east on the Riviera Maya, home to satellites Tulum Pueblo, Acumal Pueblo, Bacalar, and Mahahual, the U.S. State Department rating is Level 2, same as Germany, France, and Italy. The Yucatan Peninsula is, simply put, the safest region in Mexico, and safer than many places in the United States. For example, look at the walled maritime city of Campeche. Because it has completely bypassed the flashy international spring break or high turnover nightlife industries, organized crime threat enterprises simply have no reason to anchor drug or extortion vectors there. The currency velocity is locally driven and stable. It is the safest city in Mexico. But let's use some real straight talk here. A high safety score does not mean a town is a sanitized suburban utopia. When you step off the high-rent commercial corridors into an adjacent satellite to actually live, you will see uneven high sidewalks, unpaved potholes, and raw municipal infrastructure strain. We use the security audit to measure real physical safety, not to hide the unvarnished realities of daily village life. The final letter in our cash location audit framework is H, the healthcare offload. The fear of medical emergency as we age is the number one anchor that traps seniors inside expensive U.S. cities, draining their capital. They make the financial mistake of believing they must live right next door to a multi-million-dollar surgical facility, which artificially inflates their daily cost of living. The core satellite method solves this through a proximity buffer. You live inside the low-overhead domestic currency grid of your satellite town, but you explicitly select a satellite linked by a flat, high-speed blacktop corridor straight to your core hub's private surgical hospitals. You gotta be careful here. Most satellites of major urban centers simply don't have reliable, quick access to the private hospitals in the major hubs. Let's apply this directly to a geographic cluster from my book that I call the Serene South, consisting of Chetumal, Bacalar, and Mahahual. In a stunning eco-destination like Bacalar or the quiet Caribbean fishing village of Mahahual, daily life is peaceful. But let's look at the raw facts. They both completely lack major emergency infrastructure. But look at the geography. They sit on an unbroken blacktop corridor leading straight into the capital hub of Chetumal. If an emergency strikes, your travel window to Chetumal's top-tier private surgical networks is an easy, predictable 30 minutes down a flat highway from Bacalar. or 80 to 90 minutes from Ma'awal. You capture the massive financial runway of village living, backed by an elite medical safety net that you only pay for when you actually use it. So that's how the cash location audit works. You can apply this framework not just to the Yucatán or elsewhere in Mexico, but anywhere in the world you're considering for retirement. But here's the catch. After you finish running the cash audit on paper, you need to step back and answer one final critical question. How important is connection and community to your mental health? You can find a town that checks every single box for budget, safety, and hospital proximity. But if you move there and find yourself entirely isolated, the plan fails. It's an absolute deal breaker for a successful retirement. You have to take an honest personal inventory of your lifestyle needs. Some of these adjacent satellites have thriving, active expat communities. They have local Facebook groups, weekly message boards, and informal meetups where you can ask an insider how to find a vetted handyman or navigate a lease. But other satellites have none of that. They are completely self-contained, working local family communities. If you choose one of those deep interior towns, your monthly cost baseline will drop through the floor, but your daily language barrier will skyrocket. If you don't know a lick of Spanish, simple daily logistics like trying to explain a prescription to a pharmacist or asking a question in a local market lane can turn into an exhausting chore. So there you have it, the core satellite method explained and applied to the Yucatan Peninsula to help you chart your path to an abundant retirement abroad. When you stop viewing international retirement as an emotional fantasy and start designing it block by block using strict numbers, your path to a premium lifestyle on a fixed income becomes completely clear. You live in a satellite pueblo to save your cash. You offload your infrastructure needs to the core city to protect your health. If you want the complete step-by-step written playbook on how to apply these rules to your relocation, grab my book, How to Retire to the Yucatan on a Social Security Budget, available right now on Amazon. And please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss my coming videos. And drop a comment below letting me know how important an expat community is to your retirement timeline. I'll see you in the next video.